Welcome students to another class of BA Part 1 English Literature. We are continuing with paper 1 section B, and in our last lesson we had talked about the Indian poet Rabindranath Tagore, who is also popularly known as the Bard of Bengal or the Poet of Bengal because he belongs to Calcutta, West Bengal in India, and we studied about the background of the poem and the poet and his most patriotic poem, When the Mind is Without Fear, prescribed in your course, will be studied in detail this lecture now. So let us read the poem Where the Mind is Without Fear. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever widening thought and action, into the heaven of freedom. My Father, let my country awake. So, such a beautiful, empowering 11-line poem written by our very own Indian poet Rabindranath Tagore, whom we had studied in the last lecture, had translated this from Bengali and English himself. And this was written at a time when India was under the British rule and oppression was all through, and not only physical but mental torture also affected very adversely all the Indian citizens, and they could not see any hope. So this poem was written at such a crucial time, so it must have definitely filled the hearts of the people for an urge to become free and dream and hope for a freer world, which at that time they could not have imagined. So we find that what are the different figures of speech, though it's very simply written, it does not follow a particular rhyme scheme, it's just coming out of the emotions in the form of such powerful words. So, but it being a beautiful poetry, it does have many figures of speech like metaphor, where the big world is compared to many small rooms separated by narrow domestic walls. So, in order to explain that how India was, though a huge country, just like a big home, but it was divided, fragmented because of the domestic wars, because the various stately princes, they were divided and fragmented because they wanted to curry favor from the British rule so that they were saved from oppression and they could easily live their lives. So, metaphor has been used by the poet. Similarly, words coming out from the depth of truth gives us the impression of a fountain spring on the comparative level. And the clear stream of reason is a comparison between reason and a flowing stream. So when your reason is very clear, then your flow of thought is like a free flowing spring, fresh, and which gives a picture of perfect freedom. And this is what the poet wishes. And then again, the dead habit that chokes the clarity of reason is compared to a dreary desert. So, a desert where we cannot uh, find any water to drink or food. So, this is how our brain becomes when we are oppressed for a long time. Freedom is regarded as heaven. So we all know that whenever we think of being in heaven, it's like being free from all shackles. So heaven is compared to freedom. Beyond this, we also find the use of personification, where tireless striving, which is an abstract idea, has been assigned with a human aspect, it stretches its arms. Country, which is personified to be awake, apostrophe, Father, let my country awake. So these are the various figures of speech used by the poet. Let us now come to the analysis of each of the lines and try to understand what the poet wants to convey through his very powerful, empowering poem. So, the first two lines, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high. In these lines, the poet pledges, in fact, it is an address to the Almighty God, where the poet wishes that his countrymen should be free from any fear of oppression or forced compulsion, and he wishes that everyone in his country has his head held high in dignity. And therefore, in other words, according to the poet, in a truly free country, every person should be fearless and should have a sense of self dignity where knowledge is free. So, in the second line, or where the mind is without fear, the poet dreams of a nation where knowledge would be free. Education should not be restricted to the upper class only, but everybody should be allowed to acquire knowledge. Not only that, the children should learn freely from the nature and the world around them, they should not be forced uh, in any way. And here, Tagore's typical concept of education is also being revealed. And the the kind of differentiation that was being done at this time has been striked at by the poet, that knowledge should not be for just the upper caste or a few, but it should be for all, where the world has not broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls. So, in these lines, the poet emphasizes the unity of not only his countrymen but also of the entire world. Because the whole world should not become fragmented, like today we say it's a global world and we talk about one world. So, this is what Rabindranath Tagore wanted to convey, that uh, the world should not be fragmented by into nations or countries, or a country should not be fragmented by prejudices based on caste, creed, color, religion, or other baseless superstitions. So he thought of a unity of a different kind, where words come out from the depths of truth. So here he wants a nation where people are truthful, not superficial, and words should come out from the depth of their hearts. So now we find that people, if we see it in the present context, we find to find a genuine heart is so difficult, because people may say something and mean something or feel something else. So, what Rabindranath Tagore has written also applies to the present times, and we need a place. If we need to make our country truthful, each individual needs to change. So, basically, Tagore wants a nation where people are not superficial and they are truthful, and whatever they say come from the depth of their heart. It should not be artificial or to curry favor. Where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection. So, in the sixth line of the poem, the poet wants everyone to work hard to reach their goal and in the long run to reach perfection. He thinks they should not be tired by working. People should not be lazy and ignoring their work. And he also emphasizes upon uh, leaving behind prejudices and old traditions, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into dreary desert sand of dead habit, which means that he compares reason to logical thinking to a clear stream flow of water which is transparent. And in the next line, he compares dead habits or superstitious beliefs to a dreary desert. Dreary is something which doesn't have anything to attract. He wants the stream of reason not to lose its way into the desert of prejudices. People's thought should be monitored by rational thinking, not by superstitious logic. Logic should rule over old baseless beliefs, because at that time in Indian people they did not use their logical scientific minds, but they were governed by the divisions of caste, the superstitions, and illogical ways of working. So the poet also reacts against that, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever binding thought and action. Here, poet wishes his countrymen to be progressive and broad minded, and he wants that their minds are led forward to ever widening thought of action by the Almighty, so a touch with the uh, God, with spirituality. We should be open minded and do something extraordinary, overcoming the narrowness of mind. So there was this desire for this uh, overall uh, personality of people, and the poet prays to the Almighty to lift humanity into that kind of thinking. Into the heaven of freedom, my father, let my country awake. So here the author prays to the Father, that is God, to awake his country into such a heaven of freedom. The poet prays to the Almighty to raise or lift his country to such heights where freedom would be realized at its best. And in this way, he prays God to awaken his countrymen so that they can come out from the darkness of ignorance, prejudice, disunity, and all other evils which uh, were gripping his country. So finally, the poem, poet's message is very clear. And if all the people of a nation are not wise enough to lead a happy and peaceful life free from all evils, they cannot enjoy their freedom well. So the poet, only political freedom is not so important unless you are fearless, self dignified. So you need an overall freedom from your thoughts and from the way you think and behave. So he wishes for his countrymen to be unprejudiced, open minded, accepting new challenges and changes. Then only they can lead their lives with decency and dignity. So the poem is remarkable because it expresses the intensity of the feeling of freedom. And this poem has a universal appeal, and he envisions the heaven of freedom, a happier future for the whole of the mankind. So, this feeling for a country which is not divided and fragmented, and his urge uh, for liberating humankind from fear of oppression is really conveyed very powerfully, and must have impacted the minds of the people at that time, as anybody who reads even today would be filled with that feeling of patriotism, as well as a feeling for creating or recreating a country, uh, that is our country, India, which should awake to the taste of heaven that freedom can bring to us. So, read and reread this poem to get that feel the poet wanted to convey to his countrymen at that time. And even every man when will speak truth will try to achieve self perfection. So it is not only for a nation but for an individual that the poet has given a beautiful, strong message. So, in this, we come to the end of the poem and the lesson. Thank you.